Peace and blessings, everybody. I wanted to come today and talk about distress tolerance. And distress tolerance, I want to talk about it from my DBT book, from the therapy that I've actually taken, the group therapy plus the individual therapy that I've actually taken with DBT. And I want to talk a little bit about distress tolerance. And so what I want to talk about is when you use your crisis survival skills. So everybody, when they get in a crisis, they have survival skills. And so when are we using those? You are using crisis when a situation is highly stressful, short term, that is, and it won't last long term, and you're creating intense pressure to resolve the crisis now. So for me, when they say it's a highly stressed situation, sometimes you feel like you have to resolve it right then and there, but that's not always the case. So what you need to do is use crisis survival skills when you have intense pain that cannot be helped quickly. You are acting on your emotion, but will only make things worse. Emotion mind threatens to overwhelm you, and you need to stay skillful. You are overwhelmed, yet demands must be met. Arousal is extreme, but problems can't be solved immediately. So essentially, when you're in the crisis survival mode, is when you're in a situation that you don't necessarily emotionally know how to handle and you don't know what to do. And so then you use your crisis survival skills for everyday problems, solve all of life problems, making life worth living, right? And that's the goal of DBT therapy, is to create a life that's worth living. And so that's what we're looking at. And so when you use your survival skills, what is the survival skill now that we're going to ask, right? Like you're talking about survival skills. There is a specific skill called stop, just like a stop sign. Stop, right? You think, and I do this. I actually physically do the stop when I want to stop the conversation. And it's an acronym for actions that you can make. And the S is actually for stop. Do not react to the situation, even though your emotions are telling you to react to the situation. Don't react to them. You have to stop, you have to breathe, and you have to take in what is going on. The next thing is to take a step back. Just like I said, so once you take in what's going on, you got to take a step back and you have to look at the situation. And you have to have enough courage to tell a person, hey, stop right now. I'm not willing to have this conversation. I need to make sense in my brain before I have that conversation. So then walking away allows you to take a break, and then you could take deep breaths in order to calm yourself down, and then it allows the impulse feelings that you have inside of you, it allows them to subside. Sometimes you might have to do a little bit extra, but sometimes you have to put water on your face. Whatever calms you down, you might have to do that. But it will allow the impulse to kind of go away when you're allowed to separate yourself from that person and have enough courage just to say stop. And then the O is for observe. So you notice what is going on inside and out of you when it comes to the feelings of the situation. So what is going on within me when this is happening? And then you consider the thoughts and feelings of the situation of the person too. Like, why are they acting like this? Why did they do this? What might be going on with them that's causing this thing to happen? And then you got to ask yourself, what is that person doing to you? Right? What are others doing to you? If they're doing something abusive, then you know that that's a conversation you want to cut off and walk away completely. But if they're really trying to resolve an issue with you, then that's something that you need to recognize. And then the other thing is proceed mindfully. So when you do decide to have the conversation, you need to act with awareness. So if you say, okay, now, John, it's time for us to have this conversation that you came home late from work, and you said you were going to be home at 5, but you came home at 7 and you didn't tell me what was going on, I feel upset, right? So you have to recognize the feeling that you feel, and then you have to decide what to do. Are you gonna calmly explain your feelings to him, or are you gonna allow your emotions to allow you to act impulsively? And so with the proceed with mindfulness, we want to act in mindfulness. So we want to communicate with the person and what they did and why you're feeling the way that you're feeling. And if they're not, the thing is that if they're not receptive to what you're doing, you still need to stand firm on what you're doing, because it's going to be helpful for you. And so again, it's STOP. It's stop, it's take a step back, it's observe, and it's proceed mindfully. And those are things that you could do when you're in a crisis survival situation with another person and you don't know exactly what is supposed to happen in that moment. Have enough courage to tell them to stop. Put your hand up and say, stop. We'll have this conversation later. I have to figure this out in my head before I can have this conversation. And you'll go a long way. Peace and blessings, everybody.